Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. I've never done something like this before, but on my Instagram page at Living Smart Happy Heart, I've been posting a lot about nutrition and exercise and taking polls and wondering what you guys are interested in learning about now that I am graduated from NYU with my bachelor's in nutrition and food studies. But you guys have expressed interest in wanting to know more about cooking in a shorter amount of time, and I feel like I am very good at time management, and I've learned a lot of different tips along the way about having good time management with cooking and being really efficient when I cook. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. There are 3 main tips that I stick with when I'm trying to cook in a short time. One thing I think is really important is knife skills. Knowing how to use a knife and being really effective when you're doing prep work, like cutting in a potato or vegetables, will be really helpful in reducing the amount of time it takes you to prepare food in order to cook them. Number 2, being able to multitask is really important when you're trying to cook in a short amount of time, because you want to know what is going to cook the longest, what items can be cooked while you're cooking those other items that take a longer time, knowing how to stay organized with different parts of your meal. Third tip is cleanup. So I notice a lot of friends and family, when they're cooking, they leave things around and they don't really clean up as they go, so it makes it actually harder to cook in a shorter time, only because the space that you're cooking in is really cluttered. And reducing that along the way will be really helpful in making sure that you can cook in a small space. Also, I'm in a small apartment in Manhattan. I don't have any counter space, so I just use this little table I have right here, which is also cluttered with stuff. The dishwashing situation, like if you look at my sink, there's nowhere to put my dishes. This is actually a trivet, and then I have another dish rack thing on a little cart to put my actual dishes. Long story short, I don't have a lot of cooking space, and so staying really neat and organized in a small space is really helpful, and it has shaped how I cook in a short time. So I'm gonna stop talking. I like to remove all my jewelry, especially working with raw foods. It's really important to stay really sanitary when you're cooking. I'm going to be placing everything I'm doing in this little area. This is mainly where I prep, and I'll show you the stove while I'm cooking. So I'm going to make salmon with a side of squash and potatoes. Out of all of those things, I know that I'm making the salmon in a pan. Another tip, making things in a pan versus baking. Anything you bake will generally take the longest because you're using air as a medium to cook your food. Versus cooking on a pan, you're using direct contact with the heat source via the pan. So it's actually going to cook faster, and you can also kind of steam at the same time by putting a lid on it. But anything you bake is going to take longer. So since I'm making the potatoes, I'm going to start working on that first. Once that's in the oven, I can work on my veggies, which I'll work on my veggies last because that takes the shortest amount of time, and then I'll make the salmon. Preheat the oven to 425. I'm gonna be baking the potatoes. I usually use that temperature. It'll probably take like 20 minutes. I'm only making 1 potato. In that amount of time, I'm gonna be multitasking and making the other ingredients, and so that will probably be when I can eat my food. So it's 8:24 right now. I'm going to start prepping the potatoes. I line a pan with aluminum foil for potatoes. I've already washed this potato the other day, so I'm gonna use this. Again, knife skills. So generally, it's not too hard, but holding a knife like this gives you more stability, and you can chop like that. Holding things, you want to claw so that you don't chop off your fingers. Also, making the ingredients into smaller pieces like potatoes, it will reduce the time it takes in the oven. So smaller pieces, less time it takes, because there's more surface area that your food can cook in the oven. Another thing, I have a gas oven, so it's gonna take less time for it to preheat. So once I'm actually done prepping all this and seasoning it, I'm going to stick it straight in the oven. I don't really care what the preheated temperature is because it's gas in it. Usually doesn't take that long. Grab your olive oil. I drizzle like maybe a tablespoon or so. I like to put a little bit of salt I don't really measure things, that's another thing. When you get more experience, you can eyeball it, but okay, for spices, I go crazy with garlic. I love garlic, and spices you can go crazy. The only thing you need to be conservative with is the salt because of the sodium. That was garlic powder. Everything else can just make your food taste good. It doesn't add calories, it's not bad for you. Most things are actually good for you. This is paprika. Do a little bit of basil. Give this a good toss, because you want to make sure, for potatoes cooking in the oven, the more coated your potatoes are with the oil, it will stick less to the pan, so it'll be easier to toss it and it gets crispier faster. So basically with the potatoes, once you get it in the oven, that's all you need to do. All you need to do is toss it midway through cooking process, and then you'll be done with the potatoes. For the salmon, I don't necessarily use proper cooking techniques when I have little space like this, but for the salmon, I usually wash it in the sink, stick it right in the pan with a paper towel so that it can like take off some of the water. And then I remove the paper towel, then put the oil and cook it at the same time. Usually you would want, if you have more room, you wash the salmon, put a paper towel on a plate, put the salmon on the plate when you're done washing it. Then you heat up the pan with the oil first, and then you stick the meat on, and then do whatever else. But for the sake of space and dishes, I do it this way. I have salmon here, Trader Joe's. It is 8:30 when I'm starting to prep the salmon. But I'm just rinsing the salmon. And once it's in the pan, I like kind of pat it dry while my hands are still dirty, and then I take out the paper towel because it saves trips washing your hands. Now it's time to season it. So, olive oil. Again, maybe that was probably a tablespoon of olive oil. I'm gonna rub it. I already turned my heat on, so I'm working fast. I'm just making sure that the pan is coated, the salmon is coated on both sides with the oil. Skin side is down. I don't really season the skin side because it has a lot of flavor. I usually just season the top. But I'm washing my hands again because I just touched the salmon. There's a lot of hand washing with raw meat. Food safety. I just literally today, earlier in like an hour ago, I just got food safety certified as a manager. So I know what I'm talking about. I usually also do pepper in both of these things, but I ran out of pepper. So salt, just a little bit. I go crazy with the garlic. Oh, that's kind of really crazy, but do you see this container? I don't really have control over what comes out. I'm gonna just do salt and garlic because I'm gonna use a teriyaki sauce. Now, this is important because of the lid. You're trapping the heat, so the heat is also cooking it. So it's like direct heat with air heat. Air cooking? I don't know. So 8:33, it's starting to cook already. The potatoes are done, salmon is pretty much done. Now what are you gonna do? You're gonna prep your veggies. I didn't put away this cutting board because I knew I was gonna use it for the zucchini. That's another thing. If you know you're gonna use something for something else, that is not cross-contamination, such as potatoes and vegetables, not potatoes and meat. Like, you can't do that. But if you're doing potatoes and like zucchini, it doesn't really matter. So I'm using the same cutting board. I have one zucchini. It's very small. I just washed that. You don't really need to dry it too much. You're gonna cut the top off. In smaller pieces, less cooking time. Cut it in half. They're all half circles. So instead of cutting them all into full circles and then cutting them again, you just cut it down the line once, and then they're all in half already. I'm going to heat this pan very low. This flame is hot. It's 8:36 now. I'm sticking my zucchini in. I give that a good toss so that the oil can get all over. Staples, salt, garlic powder. Once that's done, you give it a good stir. That's the other thing. I like to do this so that I don't have to dirty up some spatulas before I actually need to use them. That's cooking. The other tip I mentioned earlier is clean up. See my table? It's very messy. I'm going to put away all of my ingredients that I just used and took out. While those things are cooking, they don't need my attention right now. I can clean up. I put away the spices. I'm putting away the olive oil. I don't need that anymore. Everything that needs to be seasoned and flavored with is not being used anymore. I'm discarding my cutting board and knife. I don't need that. Okay. See this salmon? That's probably overcooking. So you're gonna remove the lid. Now that it's like pretty almost done, I'm gonna lower the heat. This is very hard to do with one hand. I'm gonna put a couple tablespoons of this sauce. That was probably like 4 tablespoons. The sauce will kind of lower the cooking process because it's cold and the fish is hot. It's 8:40. It's been almost 20 minutes. I need to toss the potatoes. Remember, this was literally 1 potato, so it's going to be pretty done almost. So see how it comes off the pan easily? It's because it was coated in oil on all sides. It's also almost brown, so it probably only needs a couple more minutes to cook, and then it'll be done. Like French fries. Goes back in the oven. The zucchini is taking a little longer to cook than usual, so I'm gonna turn up the heat a little bit more so that all you want really with the zucchini, or all I want, is for it to be brown on the outsides. I don't usually make it super soft cooking. I'm gonna flip it once more so that it can end the cooking on the skin side. Okay, so the way you tell salmon is done is if it flakes. This one is a different type of salmon and it's pretty much done. So I'm going to stop the cooking process. It's 8:42 and we started at 8:20, which means it only took like 20 minutes to cook this whole meal. And guess what? The salmon was a way of meal prepping. So I'm not gonna eat all of this, obviously. I'll probably eat this whole thing because I didn't have too much protein today. And that's about, I'd say 4 or 5 ounces. That small piece right there. This was, again, 1 zucchini. I used 1 potato. The rest of the salmon you can put in a container to eat throughout the week. So really, we only need a couple dishes and obviously the pots and pans, but again, that can be done another time. It's not too crazy. Usually if there's more dishes, I would have washed it while the salmon and the squash were cooking, while I was putting away all the other stuff. But really, this kind of recipe doesn't use too many dishes. Another thing I wanted to point out for shorter cooking times with ingredients is using meats that are being cooked in a pan, such as salmon. That doesn't take a long time because salmon's very delicate. So salmon cooks quickly in the pan, as well as ground beef, turkey, chicken, anything ground will take shorter time because it has more surface area. And that you can like chop up. That's super easy to cook because it's like small pieces. This zucchini is getting brown. I like it that way. I'm gonna stop it, so that's done. There's still some oil in the pan, so obviously I'm not using all of the oil that I've been adding. So if I did put a tablespoon of oil, I may be eating like maybe like a teaspoon, honestly, not too much. The potatoes are done. I'm gonna take them out. There you have it. I basically made the zucchini, the potatoes, and the salmon in 20 minutes. 20-minute meal, super easy, super quick, not a lot of dishes. My main 3 tips is 1, knife skills, 2, multitasking, and 3, clean up while you're cooking. So that's part of multitasking, but that's its whole other thing. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Comment down below if you want to know anything else about nutrition or exercise or health and wellness. I'm here to answer all of your questions, and I hope you try the recipe. Tell me how it is, tell me how it goes, and let me know what you think. All right, bye guys.